Tricksters versus magicians. Let's start with tricksters. Tricksters do tricks. Fundamentally, they're looking to take something from that interaction. They love the respect and the accolades from others. They love the label of magician, and they know secrets that you don't know, and they're prepared to fool you using them. Fundamentally, they're lacking in something in themselves. They want the attention, and they need to fill in a void somewhere. It's almost like they want to be loved by other people, and they need to feel important in a group. And it's their way of kind of communicating with other people and breaking that ice, because they're lacking the self-awareness of who they are. They're using magic as a tool, a very powerful tool, in order to fill in that void. And that's something that I did up until I was about 18. And I realised that I was known as the magician. Oh, whose name is Matthew? And when I was 18, I realised that I didn't want that to be the case anymore. I wanted to be known as Matthew. Oh, and he does magic. And so I stopped performing magic for friends and family, and I stopped performing for people that I just met for the first time. And it was a painful period of growth, but I was self-aware enough to know that I needed to do it. And I've always been heavily into personal growth, and I'm glad I did it, because I learned how to interact with people and how to socialise, and I learnt more about myself by making that decision. And I would say that I'm more of a magician than I've ever been since making that decision. And what a magician is somebody who wants to enter the interaction, giving the person they're performing to something special that they can't get anywhere else. They're there to give an experience, not to take anything. And that's the fundamental difference, I believe, is when a magician performs, you get this sense of, this is really special. You know, I'm really learning something here, and it's basically an opportunity to connect with another human being. And that's a really important difference, because people can sense when you're in it for yourself and when you're in it for them. I don't know if you've ever met somebody who's, they just kind of leave a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, or you just kind of sense that they're not really there for you, they're there to kind of take from a scenario. Or you just fundamentally don't like them straight away. I think that a lot of magic now is tricks, and a lot of people performing magic, or performing those tricks, should I say, are tricksters. And I'd love to see magic take more of a journey. People tend to get stuck on this journey where they're stuck in the trickster zone and they're not getting out of it. They're not turning themselves into magicians because they're scared to look at themselves, and they're scared to have the self-awareness to understand why they're doing magic, and what is it that's lacking in themselves for them to continue just doing tricks. So I urge anyone who's performing magic to start looking at themselves and understanding that they need the self-awareness, the authenticity, and being present. If you're self-aware enough to grow, then you'll be authentic to yourself. And once you're authentic, you'll then be able to create routines and create ways of dealing with people that are helping you in those routines. And you'll be more present and in the moment. And I'm always working on this myself. I think there's a piece of advice which I was given early on, every magician's given early on, which is be yourself, just be yourself. I think that's awful advice, because when you're a young magician, when I started out, I was given this advice, I didn't know who I was, but I think that's the same as you grow up. You understand yourself a bit better as years go by, but to understand myself in this moment right now is much harder. I can understand myself a few years ago, and I can see where things were happening, and why I was who I was, etc. Because it's difficult to read the label from inside the bottle. When you're in it, it's very difficult to see from a different perspective. So self-awareness is the first thing. Then being authentic and just doing things that you care about, talking about things that you care about, and connecting with other people in a way that you care about. Not everybody else. People are copying other people's routines and presentations and buying stuff straight off the shelf and performing it as is. I think there's so much more to be learned, and so much more to be shared from people by sharing their own experiences and their own interests. It just creates a level of authenticity which the audience can sense. They really understand it, and they know it, and they know that you're talking about things that are important to you and that you care about, and and they just know. They just know when they sense that. And the other thing is, once you've created those scenarios and you've practiced them and rehearsed them, it's then about being present and in the moment. You know, not being kind of stuck and buried in the cards or in whatever you're using to give these people magic, but being present. And when people say comments, being there with that comment and saying a response back to it and absorbing it and making it part of this scene, this piece of theatre you're creating, because ultimately people that are watching the magic are involved, and if they're interacting with you, then they are part of that story. Just disregarding them and moving on to the next thing, or waiting for the next gag, or if it interrupts your timing, that's just what it is. You know, don't let it put you off. Just interact with that and be with that. Yeah, I'm still working on this myself, being present in my performances. But yeah, I'd urge my younger self, if I could say anything, is to just be authentic, self-aware, and be present in the moment as much as possible, and you'll become a better magician as a result. I'll catch you in a bit.